There is a fear you carry that you did not choose. A fear older than language, older than memory, older than anything you have ever been taught. You feel it at the edge of a dark room. You feel it when something moves in your peripheral vision and you spin around before you even know why. You feel it in a few seconds between turning off the light and pulling the covers up. That fear has a name, and it is not imaginary. It is a memory. A biological memory burned into your nervous system by something that hunted your ancestors, relentlessly, intelligently, patiently, for thousands of years. And the animal responsible is not the one you would guess. It was not a mammoth, not a cave bear, not a wolf. The animal that shaped your deepest fears, that redesigned the way your brain processes threat, that may have fundamentally altered the course of human evolution itself, was a cat. Not just any cat, a leopard. And for a stretch of human prehistory that dwarfs everything you think of as civilization, the leopard was not something your ancestors feared occasionally. It was something they lived inside of. A constant, invisible, extraordinarily intelligent presence in the darkness that watched them, waited for them, and took them, one by one, in the night. To understand what this means, you have to understand what a leopard actually is. The leopard is arguably the most successful large predator in the history of the world. It exists today across more of the Earth's surface than any other wild cat. It thrives in rainforests and deserts, in mountain ranges and urban fringes. It is not the strongest predator. It is not the fastest. But it is the most adaptable, the most patient, and in one crucial respect, the most dangerous. It is a specialist in taking prey that does not know it is being hunted. Leopards are almost entirely nocturnal. They move in silence. Their spotted coats evolved specifically to dissolve them into dappled light and shadow, the exact kind of visual environment your ancestors lived inside every night. They climb trees with the ease of a squirrel, carrying prey twice their own body weight up into the canopy where nothing can reach it. And they are strategic. They observe. They learn the movements of their prey. They wait. For a small bipedal hominin walking upright across the African savanna, slow, ground-sleeping, firelight-dependent, the leopard was not simply a predator. It was something more like a recurring nightmare made real, every night, for thousands of years. The fossil evidence is not subtle. Paleoanthropologist Charles Brain spent decades excavating the caves of South Africa, including a site called Swartkrans, and what he found permanently changed the scientific understanding of early human life. Inside those caves, among the bones of our direct ancestors, Australopithecus africanus, Paranthropus robustus, early Homo, he found skulls. And in those skulls he found puncture marks. Two circular holes, perfectly spaced, perfectly sized to match the lower canine teeth of a leopard. The caves were not human homes. They were leopard lairs. The bones of our ancestors ended up there because they were the leopard's prey, dragged up into trees and caves the way a leopard drags an impala today. Brain published his findings in 1981 in a book called The Hunters or The Hunted, and the title was a genuine question. For much of our evolutionary history, the answer was, the hunted. Think about what this means. For hundreds of thousands of years, far longer than our species has existed in its current form, the animals that would eventually become you were being systematically selected for one primary trait above all others, survival in the dark, around a predator that was better at the dark than they would ever be. And natural selection does not forget. Every human alive today is a descendant of the individuals who survived. Not the ones who were relaxed at night. Not the ones who wandered away from the group. Not the ones who slept deeply in exposed places. The ones who made it through were the ones who were alert, who stayed close, who startled at sounds, who woke easily, who kept the fire burning, who slept in groups and communicated danger. Your nervous system is a survival archive. Every reflex you carry in it was paid for by someone who did not survive. Anthropologist Lynn Isbell, who spent years studying primates and snake detection, has proposed one of the most compelling theories in evolutionary biology, that the visual cortex of primates, including humans, may have been specifically shaped by the pressure of predator detection. The ability to spot a leopard in dappled shadow, to detect a subtle pattern of spots against a background of shifting light, drove the evolution of our visual processing in ways that still operate in you right now. When you feel watched, when the hairs on the back of your neck rise for no visible reason, that is an ancient detection system activating. One that your ancestors paid dearly to build. But the leopard's influence does not stop at fear. It goes deeper, much deeper. Anthropologist Robert Sussman spent years challenging the dominant narrative of early human life, the idea that our ancestors were primarily hunters, aggressive, predatory, shaping the world around them through force and intelligence. What Sussman found instead was evidence that for most of early hominin existence, we were not the apex predator. We were somewhere in the middle. We were prey as much as we were hunters, and the social structures that define what it means to be human, our extraordinary cooperativeness, our obsession with group membership, our ability to form alliances and trust networks with non-kin, may have evolved not because of our hunting behavior, but because of our predation pressure. You cooperate because cooperation kept you alive at night. You trust your group because your group was your only defense against something that could see in the dark. You feel anxious when you are alone and calm when you are surrounded by people you know, and that feeling is not social anxiety, it is a predator response that never went away. There is a reason humans are the only great ape that sleeps on the ground. Every other great ape, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, builds nests in trees at night. They go up, they get off the ground. Because the ground at night is where the predators are. Humans eventually came down. down. But before they had fire, before they had weapons sophisticated enough to change the dynamic, that descent was extraordinarily dangerous. And the leopard was the central reason why. Fire changes everything. Researchers studying modern traditional communities have observed that fire is not simply a tool for warmth or cooking. It is a psychological barrier. The light it creates is a boundary. Leopards, like most large predators, are cautious around fire, not because they cannot enter the firelight, they can, but because fire illuminates, and illumination removes the leopard's greatest advantage. The darkness, the invisibility, the silence. Your ancestors did not sit around the fire because it was romantic. They sat around the fire because the darkness outside it was lethal. The fire was the difference between a defensible perimeter and open exposure to a predator that could take you before you knew it was there. And the conversation, the storytelling, the social bonding that happened in that firelight. Researchers including anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who studied the Kalahari, Kungsan people, found that nighttime fire conversation was qualitatively different from daytime conversation. During the day, people talked about food, resources, practical tasks. At night around the fire, they told stories. They talked about people who were not present. They built social networks. They maintained the web of relationships that kept the group cohesive enough to survive. The leopard made humans into storytellers. Not directly, but the pressure of surviving something that intelligent and that dangerous in the dark created the conditions for everything that makes us distinctly human: the fire, the group, the story, the social trust. Here is something that should stop you cold. The leopard's hunting range in prehistoric Africa overlapped almost perfectly with the range of our earliest ancestors. Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, the Australopithecines, all of them lived in the exact territories where leopard populations were densest. And the leopard's preference for primate prey is not a modern behavior. Leopards today still preferentially hunt baboons and other primates when given the choice. Our ancestors were not an accidental meal. They were, for a significant period, a preferred one. The fear of large cats is one of the most cross-cultural and deeply embedded phobias in human psychology. It appears in children who have never seen a wild cat, in communities that have had no contact with big cats for generations, in nightmare imagery that recurs across cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. Carl Jung called it a shadow archetype, the predator in the dark that the human psyche carries as a permanent fixture. But it is not a metaphor. It is a memory. It just runs deeper than anything you can consciously access. And the leopard is still here. Right now, today, leopards coexist with human communities across sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. They take livestock. They occasionally take people. And in every community where this happens, the response is immediate, visceral, and ancient. The fires are kept burning brighter, the children are kept inside, the adults move in groups. Because somewhere underneath the logic and the language and the modern life, the nervous system still knows. It knows what the darkness can hold. It knows what it means when something moves at the edge of the light. It knows the shape of the thing that hunted you for longer than you have been you. Tonight, when you reach for the light switch and feel that half-second of unease before the room goes dark, that is not irrational. That is not weakness. That is the oldest and most expensive lesson your species ever learned, passed down through every generation that survived to teach it. The animal that hunted humans for thousands of years did not disappear. It just moved into the part of your mind where the lights don't reach.